Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
How creepy are USA forests? So my friend from uni, who I used to do easy/out/trips, has invited me to come visit him, move to the USA, and go camping all over the Midwest and Western US for a month. I recently got a job but told them about this plan, and they okayed me starting later, so I literally have a month straight of camping. I am actually spooked about camping in dense woods in places like Pennsylvania, where we start, Michigan, Minnesota, even Black Hills in South Dakota. I feel like out west it's more expansive, and even if forested, it's not as creepy. Maybe I'm wrong, but I legit think I might blow it because I'm creeped out by the woods. Is it actually that creepy? I've done camping in the UK and France and wasn't really afraid, but this is my first time doing backcountry camping.
I live in Ontario, Canada, and in the hot summer of '97, I was going to a party and took a shortcut across an old train track bridge. As I made it halfway across, I looked back to make sure there wasn't a train coming. To the left-hand side of me was wilderness with a clearing right in the middle of this forest. I could see something in the clearing that to me looked like someone wearing a big black coat with a pointed hood up with no facial features, just standing there looking at me. I remember thinking, why would someone be wearing a big coat in this heat for? At that moment I yelled, "I see you," and right after that it slowly backed up into the tree line and disappeared. I told my friends, and they had said it was probably just a tweaker getting high. For some reason, it has always stuck in my head as something strange.
Sounds like you saw a Bigfoot with a big sagittal crest. Makes them look like a cone head. Reminds me of a sighting where the woman saw a person in the woodline with a big fur coat in the middle of summer. Or hikers seeing people who they think are wearing those skull hoodies that pull all that way up so you can't see the face. Again, to me it sounds like Bigfoot.
Just for your information as a native, there are things in the forests that haven't revealed themselves much. Some are just not scary at all, but believe me, there are a few that will have you frozen solid if you accidentally ran into them. The good thing is they don't harm you, but the effects of seeing them spiritually are damaging. And days and months later, you will feel what it is I mean.
I am unironically some brand of schizo, but for some reason I have kept my wits about me despite seeing strange hallucinations. Have been since I'm a kid. Been seen by a doctor and a psych and they said it's fine. I have a high-paying job, relationships, friends, etc. I regularly go Innawoods at night, and that's when I see stuff. I'll just see a disembodied pair of legs walking around, and then when I shine a light on it, they are gone. I'll see someone walking, and then when I look closer, they are gone. They are always semi-transparent and fade away when I get closer or have a clearer view. I only see it in darkness. It's never bothered me. I am far more afraid of real people than the random schizo shit I see. The only reason I pay attention to them is to make sure I'm not bumping into a person. Other things I'll see is smoke where there is none, or glowing balls of light. There were a couple of times when a friend with me saw it too, and that bothered me, but it's not for me to think about. It's not my job to figure out the secrets of the universe. That's how I keep my sanity. The doctor explained as such. The brain seeks familiar patterns in the darkness. It can't quite make something out, so it makes something up, something you'd see commonly. So I see people walking on trails, fading like a mirage on the road as you drive up to it. The only thing the other person ever saw was the glowing ball of light. It could have been a real earth light. It popped out of the ground and then up and just shrank and poof. Now if you Google earth light, it's just a bunch of consumer slop, but for a while people were thinking it was a real scientific phenomena. I digress.
I cannot emphasize more on do not go to the woods at night with or without guns and people. It was the 7th of December 2021, exactly 9:13 p.m. deep in the woods, approximately 60 kilometers from my home. When I had my entire government legal name called out in an infant baby voice, I closed my eyes and started crying inside my mind. I have no explanation why I did that, just to start running in utter chaos like a maniac. I covered 2 kilometers in like 8 minutes.
My first attempt at camping alone in Innawoods was last year in the early part of fall, before the orange colors came out. I had a weird guy in his truck drive by me 3 times, and twice staring dead at me and my sight casing the area. I knew he was casing me as well since he drove by twice in too close of a time frame not to be. No joke, I encountered him a few months ago, and he followed me up an entire back road slowly, until I eventually looked around and saw him. He immediately pulled out and drove the other way, same truck and everything. He might have been trying to case me so he could rob me while I slept. That night I fought really hard to keep the fire burning too, and there was a lot of laughter and commotion from the voice of a woman out in the woods. I hadn't seen anyone else though. It's possible it could have been people primitive camping or just passing by, but the trails and other sites were way too far away.
My buddy and I were bushwhacking through the woods and found what looked like a satanic altar made around a tree root shaped like a pentagram covered in brown splotches. The sun was just starting to go down, so we decided to split and find the trail. A little girl's voice kept calling out for help every 30 seconds or so, but from completely different directions. Same voice, but he spooked and bolted like in a random direction and I couldn't get him to come back, so I went back to the car. Drove around looking for him and calling his phone. Found him stuck on a barbed wire fence that goes around the property of this government deaf school. He had no pants on and refuses to tell me what happened to him to this day. I don't remember if there was feces in his undies. I guess I'd remember if he had smeared it all over the car seat, so I don't think he got assaulted. From behind at least.
Dog, I've had something similar like this happen, but instead I heard a baby crying in the middle of nowhere. What messed me up was the fact when I got home I realized I was supposed to be the only one in the woods, and there was no way a baby would be alone crying out there at night.
Here's a story of something that happened recently. I'm not super into the paranormal and thought I'd share, but it unnerves the hell out of me. Late November this year. Had a large blizzard slam through Kansas. In some areas of Kansas there were over 7 inches of snow. I live in the northeast part of the state inside of Topeka. I have a co-worker that lives on the Potawatomi Reservation who believes in the tribal religions and legends. He also keeps up on what's going on with the Meskwaki Nation and the separatist group in Oklahoma. I'm Potawatomi too, but not into any of that. My dad was too, but he's now full Christian. Due to the oncoming storm, the warehouse workers, which included me and my co-worker, got off work early. My co-worker called me up to ask if I wanted to go deer hunting. Sure, whatever, but who the hell goes and hunts deer in a goddamn snowstorm? He's full-tier redneck. He has no windows in a half-finished house but uses sheets to keep air from coming in. He sleeps on the floor on a mattress, with guns laying everywhere. He has a huge wood-burning stove from the late 1800s he uses for stuff, like how a modern stove is used. At that point, it was lightly snowing, so I decided to go. Let my dad know, and he just told me to be prepared in case shit hits the fan with the storm. Grabbed my Remington 700 LH and drove 30 minutes north. Packed 180 grain soft tip rounds. Finally got up there and went out to the forest with my co-worker to go get some deer. Not even 10 minutes into the hunt, we were rounding a line of pine trees along a fence line and spotted a dead buck. It had been dead probably not even 30 minutes. The blood was still kind of fresh and everything. The storm was steadily getting worse, but my co-worker decided to just start taking it apart right there. Oh cool, I didn't even need to use my gun. As we walked up, he noticed that the buck had been torn to shit. The only scavengeable thing on the carcass's body was the rear legs. Immediately I had a bad feeling and loaded my Remington because no coyote can do that level of damage. A mountain lion maybe. There's been sightings in Kansas, but not to the point it makes me worry. It looked like someone had force-fed the deer a stick of dynamite and blew the thing up. Its rib cage had been pried open, as if something had forced it apart and split it open. Meat here and there, fur everywhere. Half its torso had been torn to shit. There was a small blood trail leading off and he looked off in its direction. His demeanor changed immediately and he had me squat down with him. He began examining the damage with me and began whispering, "Wiijigoo, Wiijigoo did this damage. We must get out of the area immediately. Right fucking now." Are you serious, dude? Like it's probably a mountain lion that did this? No, No goddamn puma can do damage like this. Wiijigoo tore this buck apart out of rage. We have to bail out of the area now. It'll come back to thrash the fucking carcass more. We were able to get the 2 legs and he sprinted back to his property through the forest. I had to keep up. He was hauling ass and was obviously terrified. We got to his house and he began speaking to his mom in Potawatomi. I don't know the language, so I recorded it to have my dad try and decipher what the hell they were talking about. Immediately his mom began freaking out and she had me grab my stuff and get on my way. Before she let me go, she told me to be safe. I was super curious and had asked her, "What the hell, dude? Like, I'm unnerved, not horrified. Can you explain what the hell is going on?" She dragged me out in the middle of the raging blizzard and had me get in my truck. Gave me a goddamn Coca-Cola to sip on back to Topeka. Had to drive slowly, 30 minutes back to Topeka, and showed my dad the video of their conversation. Within moments, he walked into the other room and grabbed a hammer. Haven't confronted Dad about what was said. I went to work and asked my co-worker about it. He ignores me, but he wants to go squirrel hunting soon with me. He let me have the legs. They're at my sister's in her deep freeze in Oakland near Billard Airport.
I like it. But why'd your pa grab a hammer at the end there? Self-defense in case you were being stalked?
I just woke up. He grabbed a hammer and smashed my phone. I don't know what was said in the video, but to a certain degree, since he reads the Bible, I think that he understood what was said and destroyed my phone because in the Bible it states that demonic spirits can follow you home, or something along the lines of that.
Genuinely don't understand why Americans are like this. In Europe, you trip over spooky shit. Or just old shit, depending on how you look at it. Left and right, but it's so commonplace we're desensitized to it. Americans have to invent ghosts and tell each other make-believe stories to explain away their fear of the dark. And every story is some variant of "the boogeyman knew who I was." Not to say you're all mentally disabled. I very much enjoy the cryptid stories that come out of this, but you really shouldn't chalk it up to anything more than that. Nobody in Scandinavia is genuinely on the lookout for mountain trolls either. Scariest shit out there in the woods is your fellow man.
You don't understand because you've never been exposed to a wilderness that is a living, breathing, intact entity. The wilderness in 99% of Europe is some patch of artificial woods between 2 farms. When you are in a true wilderness, you have this feeling that the whole place wants to eat you. The bugs, the trees, the small animals want you to fuck up so you can die and be eaten. Everything in such a place is looking to occupy a niche and make itself an obstacle to you, whether it's a small root or a bug, or a plant that looks tasty but could kill you. Euros are baguettes. You act like you know everything because you're Euros, and it's hard to take you seriously when you're out of your lane, which is a lot of things. Exhibit A of the Euro brain is comparing European wilderness compared to literally anywhere else. I thought of a more appropriate description. Wilderness in Europe is a kayak trip in a lake. Wilderness in North America, Canada for me, is sailing in the ocean. Euros simply cannot grasp the vast oppressiveness of a huge wilderness. Canada has as much landmass as Europe, but simply as empty wilderness. Europe can be seen from space like a Christmas tree. You simply cannot grasp it.
I make up spoopy ghost because forest big. All right, buddy, eat your peas.
I don't believe the stories. I'm saying our wildernesses have folklores to them and cultural tales because they are worthy of them. And I'm saying that to a Euro who thinks camping on a patch of invasive trees between 2 farms is the wilderness.
The Euro is saying a walk anywhere involves walking on his tens of thousands of years of human occupation, a lot of it where genuine horror went down. The Battle of the Somme kind of shit, or Stalingrad. These motherfuckers live down the road from large battlefields. To go slash out slash and camp in a patch of introduced trees. might mean camping on top of a bunch of bodies that were blown to smithereens among thousands of others in a battle. And that's just the most recent war. These go back eons. This is a threat about creepy shit, not about how fucking hardcore your slash-out slash is. I agree with you on that. North America has some huge wilderness that stares back at you like a beast. The Euro ain't talking about that. He's talking about all the real horrors that have taken place all over Europe.
But we don't actually believe we're being haunted by the forgotten Napoleonic soldier while we're out and about. Nor do we actually believe in our own folklore. Gnomes, fairies, trolls, hell, Baba Yaga. To us, as to you, they're just fireside stories. We all have our creepy locations. Oradour Săglean comes to mind culturally, but Hoia Baciu Forest in Romania is worth the mention too. What I find surprising is the sheer number of bogeyman stories coming out of the States. Where we laugh at the suggestion of trolls and gnomes, you take yours pretty seriously. That's what I don't get.
Maybe they're not just stories.
Go back to X.
This is wrong. The fear of the woods is natural. Why do woodland people make up all sorts of scary stories if they're used to the woods? The more untamed the woods, the more creepy it is. The more tamed and humanized the woods, the more neutered and docile.
IDK, I don't think it's natural, really. The instinct question could go both ways. I feel much more uncomfortable knowing there are a bunch of other people around me in cities and stuff.
Yes, it is natural. I still love going in the woods. But every woodland culture has scary stories that come from a deep fear of the woods and the unknown lurking within them. There's not a whole lot unknown in the woods, to be quite honest. And honestly, to me, it feels completely natural. And honestly, I feel at home there as much as anywhere. Instinctually, you could analyze it multiple ways. A lot of prey animals prefer to be in the open so that they can see far around them in clear conditions. Yet they bed down in thickets, etc., and feel comfortable and protected in them. The only thing that gives me the willies in the woods is when that wind starts blowing and those branches start creaking. A 2,000-pound live oak limb falling on you is really the only thing in the woods that can just kill you cold. The likelihood of stepping on an alligator is slim, and even a diamondback bite probably won't actually kill you, much less any of the less toxic venomous snakes.
Plenty of people disappear in the woods, and 99.99% of them either took a fall, got injured, and died of exposure, or got lost and died of exposure. The biggest danger out there is your own stupidity and underpreparedness. Of course, if you're the kind of person who gets this easily spoiled in areas that are statistically safer than the majority of cities and towns, you're probably not going that far off the beaten path, so you'll be fine. OP, go on this trip. You'll regret it if you chicken out.
You're not really getting that rural until you hit South Dakota. You'll be fine, though. I've been a fire lookout in the past in some of the most rural parts of the U.S. where the nearest building was a 1.5-hour drive. I've met weird people, but your average murderer isn't going people hunting in the woods. You're safer from two-legged creatures out there than you are in most U.S. major cities. I've been shooting out in the middle of nowhere, and most of the people are just good old boys having fun. I've met people without a second tooth in their mouth that just wanted to drive an F-150 up a gravel pit or bullshit and have a good time. It's not like Deliverance. The only thing I would be concerned about is walking into a drug farm of some kind, but you aren't going to find that in South Dakota most likely, unless it's meth. From what I heard, most meth comes from cartels now anyways. Just avoid private property. Most people just want to be left alone or bullshit a little, and for meeting randos in the forest, I've never met anyone I felt was out to get me, even though at first it will feel like Johnny Redneck is coming to make you squeal.
In the heart of Michigan's forgotten woods, where ancient pines stand sentinel, their gnarled roots clutching secrets untold, lies a forest veiled in shadow. The air here is thick, suffused with dread, as if the very trees harbor malevolence. Their needles whisper in a language unknown, a symphony of rustling leaves that speaks of doom. Step cautiously, mortal wanderer. for the path ahead is treacherous. The moon, obscured by twisted branches, casts feeble light upon the forest floor. The ground is soft, spongy, and damp, as if it cradles the bones of forgotten souls. Shapes move in the periphery, phantoms, or perhaps something more ancient and insidious. The wind carries a mournful dirge, a lament for those who dared venture deeper. Their footsteps echo through time, a chorus of lost souls seeking release. Beware the hollows where darkness pools, where the veil between worlds grows thin. Invisible tendrils reach out, probing, hungry for the warmth of mortal flesh. The pines lean closer, their limbs entwined, forming archways to realms beyond. Here, reality bends, fractures, and bleeds, and sanity unravels like a moth-eaten tapestry. The stars above are indifferent witnesses, their cold gaze revealing nothing. They know the forest's secrets, yet they remain silent, aloof. So heed my warning, traveler. Turn back before it claims you too. For in the heart of Michigan's forgotten woods, the whispering pines guard ancient horrors.
Story from my teen years. Not much happens, but it was spooky at the time. Uncle lives in Tennessee, out in the sticks, alone. His house is big, though, and nice. Family decides to meet there for a family reunion. First day there, Uncle warns us not to go near a specific area. Makes a big show of it, says it's cursed. He calls it the old tree, and it's a place where nothing grows, he says. It's just a big piece of barren land with a dead tree in the middle. One night, I caught him going out there by himself. Should be asleep, but woke up for some reason. The room I was staying in was right next to the front door and had a big window that looked out onto the front porch. I watched Uncle leave the house and walk way out. Thought, pretty sure he's headed to the old tree. Then went back to bed. The next night, the same shit happened. My uncle left the house after everyone was asleep and went out to the old tree. Noticed this time that he had a bottle with him. Asked him about it the next day. He told me he feeds the tree. I think of the bottle and ask if Uncle waters it, and he says, no, I feed it. And that was that. He wouldn't say anymore. I tell a female cousin of mine, and she says, let's go out there. So one night she comes into my room after everyone else is asleep. We wait for Uncle. He leaves as usual holding a dark bottle that looked like Jack Daniels. Cousin wants us to follow him, so off we go. Great. Didn't realize how late it is. I'm tired. Sorry if this isn't making sense. Anyway, it's windy outside and we're both cold, so we move fast. We catch up to Uncle before he gets to the old tree. Wind is so fierce so he doesn't even hear us. We can see that there's a whole area around the tree that is barren, just like said. Uncle surprises us by suddenly sprinting through the barren patch, pours something out of the bottle onto the base of the tree, dashes back. Cousin and I are so surprised, and Uncle is so fast that we don't even have time to hide. Uncle comes right to us. Get back in the house, he says. We all ran back. Uncle tells us to keep quiet about what we saw, makes me and my cousin swear. Cousin presses him and says she wants to know what he's doing or she'll tell everyone, which took some balls in my opinion. Uncle says he'll tell us tomorrow, so we all go to bed. Next day, he tells us that when he moved into the house, some dude told him that the tree's been there forever and that it eats sugar. Guy told Uncle to feed the tree sugar regularly, or he would start to get sick. Uncle thinks the dude's crazy and ignores him, but soon he does get ill. After seeing a specialist and deciding he can't afford that shit again, he decides to try the sugar trick. Weirdly enough, it works. Uncle makes a full recovery, so now he feeds the tree sugar regularly. And I give it extra anytime I have guests just in case. Wow. Uncle is a dumb boomer. My cousin and I had a good laugh about it. It becomes a private joke between us for the rest of the trip. So funny that we begin meeting up after everyone's gone to bed so we can laugh about it. Great summer overall. Damnedest thing, though. Uncle got plague when the pandemic first started. He was out of town when he caught it and had to quarantine. He was all feverish, telling doctors that he needed to feed sugar to the tree back home, LOL. He died, of course.
There's a campground my family goes to every year. I'll greentext it because it's kind of funny. Rural Wisconsin, someone came up with the character Bushwana. Bushwana is a Bigfoot sea monster creature. Some members of my family first started preaching about him 20 years ago. So be my uncle, wear a mask and a thin, ghillie suit. While my older brother was playing on the beach, he would swim up and scare him and my cousins. At night, he would wear the mask and suit, then run out of the forest. Eventually gets everyone so terrified of this creature they wouldn't leave the campsite. This goes on for the next 20 years and is kept alive for fun and to scare younger members of the family. The story of Bushwana spreads in a little campground. Everyone who visits regularly jokes about him. Now be me 13. Convinced Bushwana is real, just like my brother some years back. Hear that the fucking Bigfoot Hunter TV show guys are coming. ILOL, Bigfoot isn't real. I remember Bushwana. Realize these guys are here because of Bushwana stories. Everyone is laughing their ass off. Can't find them at a campsite. Find them somewhat deep in the woods with some weird gear making weird noises. Seems like fun. Ask to join them. Ask to be on TV. What does this do? Eventually the leader guy asked to talk to me because I was just annoying them. Kid, these people paid a lot of money to join us on this hunt. Now you better hurry back before Bigfoot comes out. These guys are fucking showmen. Walk back to campsite. No Bigfoot or Bushwana. TLDR, we started some rumor of a Bigfoot creature named Bushwana and got the Bigfoot hunters to come looking for him.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check the Odyssey and Rumble pages for separate archives of previous broadcasts.